It is so important to follow the right people. There was a group of people in Jesus' day called the Pharisees who were influential, they were law keepers, they were big on laws but small on mercy. And we learned from the Gospels that they were quite hypocritical, and Jesus could be quite scathing in speaking out against their hypocrisy and their lack of mercy. And one day he told the disciples that the Pharisees were blind guides. And that's really what was happening. These men who thought they were in touch with God and thought that they were qualified to lead other people were themselves actually blind. And Jesus went on to say that if the blind lead the blind, both will fall into a pit. So they're not the kind of people that we ought to be following, someone who's blind. But in our culture today, this is exactly what is happening. There are people in influential positions. It might be in the media, it might be in entertainment, might be in universities, people who claim that they know something important, and they might preface a lot of what they say with "I think," or "in my opinion," or "this is the way it is." But really the test of someone is, are they pointing us back to the Word of God? Is that person directing us away from themselves really and saying, look, you need to follow Jesus Christ. He is the one who is the way, the truth and the life. If not, if that person is not pointing us to Jesus, if they're not pointing us back to the written Word of God, we could have made the mistake of following a blind guide. Oh, but they look good. They got a suit and tie and a microphone in their hand. They got a big TV audience. They got a lot of followers on social media and on YouTube. No, that doesn't mean a thing. That person can be a blind leader of the blind if they're not in touch with God. So it is so important that we be discerning in who we're listening to, and this test must be applied. Is that person pointing us to Jesus Christ? Especially if they're giving us advice and direction on how to live life. Of course, a person who can go to a secular place and receive education, it might be in accounting, it might be in science, it might be in literature, and the person up the front may not be a follower of Jesus Christ and can still give useful information for that field. But what if they are starting to try and influence that person's values and how they live life and what they deem as important? What if they try and influence where that person stands in regard to issues about justice and so on? That's where we need to be careful. That person may have some knowledge in their narrow field, but once they start trying to influence our worldview and how we live our lives, we need to be very careful that we are following true followers of Jesus Christ and that we haven't fallen into the error of following blind leaders of the blind.